start recording. All right. Oh, and here's Simon. Hi, Simon. Welcome on. And Chris. Cool. All right. Well, welcome along today. I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint. Hopefully you can see that. So Zoom call number 14 today. Great to have you on. And we've got our special guest, Mark Elliott. Welcome, Mark, from UMR, from up in Auckland. So we'll hear more from Mark shortly. It's great to have you here. We've also got Hugh Galvin, who's joining us today. Hugh is from Sports NZ, and we've been working with him as well as a number of other speakers on the virtual facilitators forum. So Hugh was wanting to find out what we did and how we did it. So he's just joined us today. So thanks, Hugh, and great to have you along. Did you want to add anything?
Sorry. No, Denise, it's great to be involved to get a sense of how you run things. So awesome. Thank you.
Cool. No worries. Cool, Hugh. Apologies, trying to find you on my list of people on the right hand side. All good. Alrighty. So some cool ground rules, and I think you're all sorted. Mute when you're not talking. Video on. Love to see you, but understand if internet is an issue. So please just turn it off if video is a bit dodgy in your area. That's no dramas. And please use the chat box for questions, comments. I can see most of you were using the chat box to tell us about the weather. So yeah, Delwyn says it's sunny in Masterton, although -2 this morning. So yeah, fair enough. So you've all found the chat box, which is awesome. Cool. Today, we're going to do some quick rounds of introductions. I'll split you into small breakout rooms so you can introduce yourselves, get to know who's on the call. Then we're going to hear from Mark about the highlights of the evaluation work that he's been doing. And then we've got a couple of rounds of workshop questions to work through. So we'll be doing, to start with, a little part of a partial ORID, and then we'll have some other follow-up workshop questions that Mark has suggested. So thank you for those suggestions, Mark. And then yeah, next week we'll be talking about ideas for the future. So beyond RMPP funding, I thought it would be good to hear from a few groups who've started that conversation and get any thoughts and suggestions from those of you who are about to head into that. So I'll be in contact with a few of you to maybe share some of your experience. Anyway, without further ado, I should split you into some breakout rooms so that you can get to know a few people on the call. So I've created 7 rooms. What I'd love you to do in your breakout room is to introduce yourselves, tell everyone about your action group involvement, and maybe something that worked for you in terms of action groups during level 4 and level 3, and maybe even now, because we still can't meet face to face just at the moment. So yeah, I'll create those rooms and open them up. So head into your breakout rooms and introduce yourselves, please. Couple of minutes. And no worries, Will, that's fair enough. You can't do breakout rooms while you're driving, although you might be able to. If you're there, Will, you doing all good?
Yeah, indeed. Yep. Yeah, we're all good. Beautiful day here too.
Cool. Oh, that's nice. Excellent. Apologies, because we've got a few breakout sessions. So yeah, I'm just trying to think what might be useful. Because even if you could join the breakout room, but and just listen or something, but I don't know whether it's hard or easy to do that.
Yeah, we could give it a go. Just got to reach down and touch the button is all.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, up to you, because yeah, don't want to cause any accidents.
No, well, we'll give it a go for the next one.
Okay.
Yep.
And see how you go.
Cool. Yep.
Lovely.
Cool.
Excellent.
I'll
Thanks, Will.
Mute myself because I give quite noisy feedback if I'm driving on the call.
No worries. No, it's great to have you though. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Cool.
cool. Bye.
Bye. Welcome back, UC.
Yep.
Where are you, Dee?
Ours was a small room.
Yes, it was. Sorry, you would have had Will, but he was driving and didn't want to reach down and touch the button, which is fair enough.
I'm out in the beautiful Waikaya.
Out in the beautiful Waikaya. Wow, cool.
And I'm doing some bailage testing, so I'm just multitasking.
Okay. Excellent.
I'm not very good at it, as you can tell.
All good. Well, great to have you, Dean. Alrighty, so hopefully you got a chance to talk to a couple of people. I'm just going to do one more quick round of introductions because it's always good to just get to know who's on the call. So I've mixed up the breakout rooms again. So you're going to get another invitation to join a different breakout room. So same thing.
I don't think I've been put in one, Denise.
So if you go down to the bottom of your screen, I'll assign you to, that's very odd, isn't it? Breakout room 7.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
No worries. That worked, Ellie? Yep. Cool.
Benson man.
Sorry,
So-
that was a complete random
Yeah.
allocation.
We're getting heaps of intel here.
Yeah.
Yeah, apologies.
How funny.
I need to keep an eye on actually where you get sent.
You can't. It's pretty difficult to orchestrate, though, isn't it? If you're doing random.
Yes, I can. Well, I can move people around. So I can get them allocated and then move people around, which actually does work.
Could you just chuck me out? All of a sudden, I just disappear into another room. If you wanted
Yep.
to.
So I could send you basically into another room, just like that. So. Yeah.
At random.
No, once you're allocated to a room, then I have to actually manually allocate you to another room. So, yeah. All
Can
right.
you manually allocate like us into this group and then random everyone else and then slot us?
No, I don't think I might be. I'd have to do it manually, the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right,
But I'll make sure
we're distracting you.
That's all right. I'll make sure you spread out for next time. So apologies about that.
No, it's all good.
Anyway, so I'm about to close the rooms anyway. So I'll
Okay.
close and then meet you back in the main room.
Sounds good.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you've had a chance to get to know a few people on the call, which is always good. Alrighty. Okay. Well, I want to hand over to Brendan now to introduce Mark Elliott for us, and then Mark, we're going to hand it over to you. So, Brendan.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, and welcome to Mark. Mark's from UMR, and he's actually probably been involved in RMPP longer than most of us currently in RMPP. Mark was involved in the initial research of the RMPP program, and a lot of that supported the development of the extension model, which naturally is underpinning Action Network. He was also involved in the evaluation of the pilot program, which Denise was leading along with Richard Fitzgerald, and is now obviously here involved in wrapping up Action Network. Yeah, I think we've been lucky with Mark, and we've really benefited from his and his team's ability to relate to and extract useful insights from farmers, and doing this through around the kitchen table interviews, as he would frame it. I just wanted to give a little bit of context just in terms of around the Action Network evaluation and where Mark's work fits into that. So if you can think back to your Action Network fundamentals training, for some of you that might have been a while ago, you'll be aware of the evaluation framework that we're applying, and how that's underpinned by Bennett's hierarchy, the 7 levels of Bennett's hierarchy. And at the highest 3 levels, level 7, we have Scarlatti, who are performing an overall economic impact of Action Network evaluation. And just around that, we're really looking forward to being able to share that with you pretty soon. It's really looking good. A level below that, level 6 of Bennett's hierarchy, we've got Baker Ag performing a number of practice change related case studies. And these also feeding into that overarching Scarlatti work. And then with level 5, we've got the CASA level, so the knowledge, attitude, skills, and aspirational, the human capability and behavioural factor. And that's where Mark and his team have been interviewing farmers and groups that have been involved in Action Network, and how it's impacted them and their business. And this is also complementing, I guess, RMPP's own evaluation. Those, for example, those dreaded recurring 6-month surveys. And we're pulling all of that together, which also will wrap up and feed into that Scarlatti work as well. So Mark is well down the track of completing his work, and we wanted to allow Mark this opportunity to share some of those findings or insights with you, in addition to the pre-work videos that Denise had already sent out. So yeah, without any further ado, Mark, the floor is yours.
And thanks, Mark. And also just wanted to add
Okay, thanks, Denise, and thanks very much, Brendan, for that. So I'll get going. So I won't take long because I'm more keen to hear what you guys have to say than what I've got to say. But I'll just give you some overview of what I've seen from talking to farmers, as Brendan say, around the kitchen table. So when we started the interviews, we asked farmers to give us an overall rating of the action networks, and the overall rating was incredibly positive. I think the average was about 75% out of 100. So if I ever got that at school exam, I would have been absolutely cock-a-hoot. So that's quite a good score, I would have thought. And the thing that we did, we asked farmers to give us the main reasons for such a high score, and also and there was a more average scores as well. There weren't any low scores, and the main reasons for the average score. And the thing that interested me the most is that in both those cases, whether they have a high score or an average score, the main reasons were linked to the actual facilitation of the group. And that kind of just sort of speaks to me how critical that the whole facilitation process is for the action network. And when we asked them what the main kind of reasons were for the high scores, there were three key things that kept coming through. It was about having a supportive, a well-organised, and a strongly focused group. Now, those three attributes of extension with groups haven't always existed in the primary sector. Like I did all the work in 2014, the benchmark work, and I heard that then in this work. But prior to that, I did work on the dairy sector PGP in 2012. That one was called One Farm, and I kept hearing. I had a heading in that report that said the death of the discussion group. And the reason why I was hearing these things is because there was farmers were sick of going to these groups, because often there'd be one farmer who would be the most confident in the room, but he didn't necessarily know the most about farmer, who would derail the conversation, whinge about workers, whinge about the schedule payment, whinge about the government, all sorts of things. And before you know it, it was lunchtime and nothing had been achieved. Now, within that group, there would have been subject matter experts, but within that group, there wouldn't have been someone who was an expert in facilitation, and that's where I think that's the bit I think that's been really missing in terms of how we get expert advice in behind the farm gate, is having someone to actually control the environment. And so the investment we've seen from the red meat sector into this, I think, is really fantastic, and it's kind of something that has been missing for quite a while. I also said that when they gave average ratings, they also talked about facilitation type topics, and the main one that came through in these conversations was a lack of direction. Now it's really hard to get that balance right between being group-led or farmer-led, if you want in this occasion, and putting some structure around the group to make sure that we actually achieve something. And that balance, I think it's hard because it almost has to be a group-by-group judgment, depending on who's in your group. And so I don't think there's any real silver bullets to that, but I've got a few hints later on that I think are really critical. So because you can have farmers turn up who are completely scared about the concept of having an objective and a goal. It's really foreign to them, especially when you put those in place, and you can say they're going to be held to account around those things. Because all of a sudden there's a chance that they may get exposed amongst their peers that they aren't as good at farming as what they want people to think they are. And you've got to be really careful how you manage those people to make sure you get the best out of them in your group. And so I think that's a really critical thing to be thinking about. But then on the other side, there are farmers who don't mind having a finger pointed at them, and they actually respond well to sort of be giving a bit of a hurry up. But those farmers tend to be in your kind of top 10 to 15%. So as I said before, I don't think there's any real silver bullets around this, but I think there are a couple of underlying things that are really critical for all those farmers that we need to be quite mindful of when we're trying to bring our groups together. One, we just need to really focus that we create a culture of having a really supportive group. And the second thing, we need to really tightly manage any overly judgmental attitudes and within the group, to make sure they stay outside the group. And the reason why I think that second one is really important about being judgmental is because if you think about our primary sector, it's really, farmers are really mean to each other. And if you get a crappy copper in your front paddock, it goes around the community really quickly, and you can get really harsh comments. So it's and there's lots of farmers who can get their confidence knocked quite easily. So we've got to be really careful how we look after that. Now, when I was doing the research in 2014, I did some case study interviews, and this is what really drove this point home to me. I was talking to a farmer. He was just out of Fairlie somewhere. So often when you're doing research, you get little hints of things all over the show, but you can't really put it together. And if you're lucky enough, every now and then you get one interview that absolutely drives it home. Now this farmer told me a story. When I went to see him, he said that that earlier in his career, he had a farm advisor had come up his driveway and basically told him what he had to do. It was a bit of a sales pitch, I think. It was outlining all the things he had done wrong, and basically was really judgmental to the style of farming. And this farmer really knocked him for a six, and he basically didn't engage back in any extension work for several years. It was only through luck that he was then introduced to another farm advisor who actually understood a little bit more about the soft skills that we need to use with certain farmers to bring them into the tent, so to speak. And it was this farm advisor who came up the driveway and sort of and didn't tell him, but actually listened to what he was doing, actually understood things that he was doing quite well, and talked about making tweaks to his business, not absolutely overhauls, and that completely turned things around for this farmer. He was facing it. He talked to me back then. He thought he was going to have to sell his farm because he could not see a pathway to make enough money to afford succession planning for his son. But having this softer approach that suited his personality, it got him into a situation over 3 to 4 years. He got to a stage where now he was excited about a son who was coming home from university in a few years' time, and he had a pathway to actually create a legacy for his family within his farm. Now that to me is just a massive turnaround to go from that. And the main kicker was having someone who knew a little bit more about the softer skills that we need to use to bring certain kinds of farmers into the tent. When I heard that story, I thought that's what's missing. That's the key thing that we haven't been seeing in the red meat sector or the dairy sector for a long time. And because we put a lot of investment into the technical side of farming, and that's really, really important, and to how we can sort of do better. But we haven't put enough investment into the softer skills about how we can get that technical information in behind the farm gate for a wider group of farmers, especially those farmers. And there's a lot of farmers who lack confidence in our rural communities, and they just don't respond well to anything else but that more softer approach. And that to me was the big opportunity that I thought we had to grasp. And I've been really happy to see, as the red meat profit has evolved over the last 6 years, that they've seen it as well, and so they've invested all this money into you guys and the kind of work that you guys have been doing. So I saw it then, and I'm still seeing it now. In an interview I did 2 months ago with a farmer in Northam, I had a very similar type story, and I could see like he was not such a confident farmer, but his confidence had grown over the last 2 years of being involved in the action group, and he was now seeing that he actually had something to offer other farmers as well, and that kind of when you get a sense that you can offer other farmers things, that really builds your confidence. But the only reason he was allowed to do that because he was in a non-judgmental environment where a facilitator made sure he had a chance to have a say on the day instead of just the more confident, dominant farmers. And he was going through a real transformation in his business as he was becoming more confident to make changes. And so I think so that was the opportunity that I saw 6 years ago that I thought was missing. And I was really heartened to see now during the Action Network evaluation that I'm seeing some of the stuff coming through and these farmers making these quite cool changes. So I guess I need to say good work to you guys, because this is because of the work that you guys have been doing, and I hope you get to see many more farmers like that in your lives and see how they can, through that softer approach to them, you can really get them to making changes, because those kind of farmers have largely been missed out in the past, I reckon. So that's kind of all I've got to say on that, really.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Any questions? Could you please just open the chat box and jump in and type them in for us? Because that's, it would take us a long time to go around the screen. Welcome to Taffy as well, who's just joined the call. It's great to have him along. He came in about halfway through. Not seeing any questions so far. Anyone Anyone got any thoughts? Oh, Donna, will the feedback be sent to facilitators? Yes, absolutely. We're going to be, yeah, well, this work needs to be filtered back to you all. This is the start of that. And the other work that Brendan mentioned, the overall evaluation work and everything, still, we need to do something similar and get it all out to you guys. And this is part of it. Any comments on that, Brendan?
No, I guess, like I tried to allude to earlier, this is an opportunity to start drip feeding some of the progress that's been made around our evaluation. It's part of a wider evaluation program, which we're in the process of pulling together. But we want to be sharing more of this, or will be sharing more of this in different ways. But there will be a final report as such, or a format that, people will be able to access.
Cool.
An enduring format.
Yep, absolutely. Simon asks, how can the benefits of the soft skills approach be measured? Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, the short answer, it's really hard to do, but the longer answer is that it's critical that we do it. And I think there is a shift towards being trying to capture these things, because we know, and the government knows this as well, there's been a lot of work going on around how we can measure these sort of things. And it's and one simple measurement is improvements in confidence. So if seeing someone confidence grow, that is a critical part of it. But also doing the work that we do, I know I can't give you numbers and percentages. There's slowly been a bit of a turnaround where people realise that you don't just need stats and figures to answer questions, because life is really, really complex, and you guys are dealing with really complex issues out there, and you can't put an actual number on them. But the stories that you can tell, which are the stories you may have, I don't know if you looked at them on the internet. Those stories are true stories, and the value of a story. Farmers are farmers, and so people are people. If that story is happening somewhere, it will be happening elsewhere as well. So it's not just a one-off. So slowly there is more. There's more belief being put into those more qualitative, soft techniques and those things work really, really well. And I've seen quite a shift amongst your board over the years. I've been presenting to them. Like at first, they were really kind of wondering what the heck this guy was coming up talking about themes and IDs and all that fluffy stuff. But I've actually seen these kind of quite hardened sort of old school sort of rural sector people really starting to really see that the value and the power and the evidence in those stories. So I don't think we have to measure them with a number. I think sometimes boards and funders want that kind of thing, but I am seeing with this government and with your board becoming much more open to some of that sort of softer evidence because they see that it works.
Yeah.
Mark, just to add to that, from my perspective, I think the numbers are important, but this type of work is complementary to those numbers, and it supports the numbers and underpins it. And that's what we're seeing in our overall overarching evaluation is, the hard numbers are being supported with this type of work that Mark's been doing and that we've also been doing along the way.
Yeah. Yep. So triangulation. Trying to gather from a number of sources. Great question though. Simon, Warwick says, nice to hear the approach has been reinforced by the research. Absolutely, it is good. Ben asks, any techniques of how to install that non-judgmental culture in an action group, Mark?
Well, I'm sure if you ask people around the screen, you guys have tips for that, but I haven't been doing that. But I guess I run lots of groups. I run focus groups, so I do have some skill with doing that. But I think a really critical thing is listening, and just really encourage people to listen. And that sounds a little bit too simplistic, but that is what's important. Just listen, and don't listen with a view to say your point of view straight away. The power of listening properly is incredibly powerful for getting a group to come out and feel free to discuss their points of view.
That's cool. That's good.
I guess it reinforces the value in the ground rules up front and having a real open, honest conversation with farmers around what they need and expect from being part of the group as well.
Yeah, for sure. Ali says, it's really interesting to hear your findings, Mark, and any feedback on attendance at the meetings. What's encouraging farmers to attend the smaller groups?
Well, that's a really hard one because one of the other reasons for lower ratings I didn't put on there is not having everyone turn up at groups. Now, the real benefit of what you guys do is this small group work is a really useful technique because it allows less confident people to be more involved. But the downside of those small groups, if you have only 2 farmers don't turn up, then it can really change the dynamic of the group and just sort of take away from the value of the day. And there's no silver bullet to that. I think the only thing that kind of works, and most seem to be doing this, is having having real strong planning at the start and having really clear objectives of when meetings are going to happen. So they get them into their diaries as soon as possible, and it's a really strong rule is that we turn up, and if you've got to have a really strong excuse not to turn up.
It's a perennial one, and there's probably other facilitators that could chip in later on that too, Mark. Thanks. Simon's asking, what do we think the time lag is between increased confidence and industry-wide benefit? Any thoughts on that, Mark?
It's a long time. I think I know when we first did the pilot way back in, when that kickoff, was it 15 or 14 it started?
Yeah, 15.
They first originally talked about only having a couple of years of funding for the pilot, and we soon found pretty quickly from the research that we were doing is that 2 years just wasn't long enough, and so they managed to etch it out to 3 years, but 3 years still wasn't long enough. So farming's a long-term game, and change is a long-term game. I said in one of my earlier reports that change is an odyssey. And you got to be in for the long haul, and the problem with something like the Red Meat Profit Partnership, it gets funded by funders who need a return straight away to show they've done a good job. But in the reality of the real world, these things just take time, and so the lag between somebody getting confidence and when there's going to be a change, I can't put a number on that. But what I do know is that it needs a lot more than 3 years. So you guys will see in your groups, it probably takes 1 to 2 years, maybe even into your 3rd year before the group really starts to be effective. And then after that, really change will start to happen. But in terms of the evaluation of this, I'm sure in the heart of the schematic evaluation, there's all sorts of forecasts going into there about the time that's going to require when we're going to see more benefits coming out of some of these softer skills like confidence.
Yeah. That's a good point, Mark, and we might dig into that a bit more with Adam. We want to do something similar. Cool. Taffy's saying, what can we do to enhance our soft skills? Can we have a Zoom on this? Absolutely. Good point, Taffy, and I'll have a chat with you about that, and we'll see what we can organise, because that's what these forums are for. John says, and change requires more than facts, and it's nice to hear that. Absolutely, completely agree. And Lab has put into the chat box a suggestion of a book called The Speed of Trust, and he's suggesting chapter 11, Listen First, as being a really good place to start with that soft skill thing. So thanks, Lab, for that. I'll save the chat, and I will send that book around as part of the follow-up to the call. Cool. Well, at this stage then we'll go into the first of our workshop questions. So Ben, can you do a copy and paste of the Jamboard, please, into the chat box for us? So I'm just going to share. I've created a Jamboard with 4 boards. So some of you will be familiar with Jamboard. When you click the link, you come in and it's an online sticky wall essentially. So feel free to click the link in the chat box. Otherwise, just look on the screen. When you go into your workshop, into the breakout rooms, you'll need to choose a scribe, so someone who's going to collect responses and stick them on the sticky wall for you, for the group. So over here, you can put, you click the sticky note, you can bring up the sticky note, you can have different colored backgrounds, and you write in whatever it is on the sticky note and put it up on the board. You can move it around. Up at the top here, you can flick through. You only need the first board to start with, but you can have a look and see what the other questions that we're going to be workshopping are. So that's how you get to the other boards in a bit. But the first few questions that we're going to do, Ben, can you put in the first few questions into the chat box? I'll stop sharing that. So we're going to do a partial ORID, basically. Want you to go into breakout rooms and talk about what word or phrase did you hear from Mark and what surprised you. And then what's one thing you heard from Mark that's similar or different to your experience facilitating an action group? And that's the first question on the first Jamboard. So have a bit of a discussion about the word or phrase that you heard, what surprised you. If you're able to chuck that in the chat box, Ben, that would be great. Ben's looking like he can't find it. All good, he's got it. So we'll chuck that in the chat box. Yep, here we go. One thing you heard from Mark that's similar or different to your experience facilitating an action group. But yeah, have a first of all in your breakout room, have a talk about what you heard, what word or phrase stood out for you, and what surprised you. And then choose a scribe in your group and get them to start collating answers to the question about one thing you heard from Mark that's similar or different to your experience facilitating an action group. So I'm going to open up the rooms, and you've got 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less. I'll keep an eye on the time to do that. How are you going, Dean? Yep, good, cool.
Taffy, hi Denise. Taffy's, I think, got some communication problems. So
Oh dear.
we've got Will in the car.
Yes.
I'm here, Murray.
Are you back again? Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Good.
So I've heard confidence there.
Yeah.
I've just put down soft skills. Underrated, but hugely important in anything that you do, really. Not only facilitation, but in terms of trying to influence change.
Yeah.
What's yours, Murray? What's your word?
Well, it really was very much related to Will's. It's confidence, really, and how you know, that is absolutely critical for farmers to get themselves in the right space to accept that maybe there's a better way of doing stuff, and to opening up to the possibility of new ideas. So yeah, very similar to Will's. Sorry, I'm just trying to write. I'm not very good at multifunctioning.
Yeah, I've typed it in there.
Oh, are you putting some in as well, Kathy?
Oh, cool.
Oh well, I won't put your soft skills one in then. Did you put your soft skills one in?
Yeah, I've put it in.
Cool. Great.
We go
So what did you hear that was different from your experience? Will, did you hear anything?
Oh, sorry.
Different?
No, nothing hugely surprising in there for me.
No, for me, it was, it reinforced, which was great. It really reinforced what I was seeing. And I think, I think that's really positive. How about you, Taffy?
Yeah, I came midway, so I might have missed some other bits there. But everything I heard resonated with my understanding of enabling change.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I guess, we're all, when we're out there on the ground with our farmers, you can kind of tell when it's working and when it's not. Yeah. But it is nice to get it reinforced by that wider research. But, I do have one group where attendance has been a real issue, and we actually had a Zoom session on Tuesday night with that group, and we really tackled that issue. I was a bit nervous about it, given it was our first Zoom session with that group, but they were. I let them do the growling. I didn't do the growling.
Always better when it comes from the group.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now I'm just about to close all the rooms, so I'm going to do that and then leave you on wait. But you've got about a minute left. Is that all good?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So have you guys?
Hello.
Hi.
Back again. Cool. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you. Cool. I think everyone's back now. Brilliant. I can see on the Jamboard that you have been capturing your thoughts on things that have been similar or different to your experience and some of the things that you heard and that might have been surprising. So what we're going to do now is move into the Jamboards 2, 3, and 4. So Ben, are you able to chuck into the chat box for me, please? Yep. But all of them, please, Ben. Questions 2, 3, and 4. We'll just see how far we can get with them all. So question 2 in different breakout rooms, and we'll tackle 3 and 4 if you get time, was what do farmers tell you is the most different with action groups compared to past extension activities? So in the Jamboard, if you flick through to the second screen, you will be able to put your answers on there. Just sharing that so you can see. So if you're in Jamboard and you flick up the top, you can go to the second screen, and then there's a third and fourth. So we'll look at that second question. What do farmers tell you is most different with action groups compared to the past? And someone's already jumped in there and put smaller, which is fair enough. Then the question number 3 is, what is the biggest obstacle you face in achieving effective group culture? That could be good if you can spend some time talking about that, because that would be helpful then for us to be able to determine what would be useful for future Zoom calls. And the last question, if you get time for it, which would be a nice one to finish on, is what gives you most satisfaction from being an action group facilitator? So yeah, a few questions there. So if you can.
Are we doing, Denise, are we doing all this in this next
Yes,
breakout?
all in the next breakout.
Okay.
So you'll have maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So don't spend too long on each question, but just work through and just get your top of mind thoughts out for each of those 3 questions. So yeah, I'm going to put you into some different rooms and open them up. And off you go. Yes, and Dean, fair enough. It would be very hard to use on the phone, I imagine.
I pushed the wrong button.
Oh, that's all good. Did you want to go back or not?
Can I go back?
Yeah, so if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you should have a breakout rooms button. Do you have one?
No. On the main screen?
Oh, yes, on the main screen. So normally, if I hadn't have pressed the close breakout rooms, if you'd accidentally come out of the room, you have a breakout rooms button that appears, and you can click that to rejoin. But I think it's not there because I've closed the rooms.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Sorry about that.
No. That's all good.
I feel a bit rude for the other ones.
It happens.
I'm not quite sure what I was trying to do. Wasn't trying to leave.
It's all good. Here they all are anyway. It's all good. Welcome back, everyone. We've just discovered that if you close the breakout rooms and someone pops out accidentally, they don't end up with a breakout room button so they can rejoin their breakout room. So never mind, you get that. Conscious that we have rushed through those questions and most of you didn't get a chance to get to the last one, but I'll leave the Jamboards up. Oh no, a few people got to get to the last one, so well done team. It's all good. Mark. Where is Mark again? I'm trying to find Mark there. Mark, any last comments or thoughts just based on what you heard in the couple of breakout rooms that you were in?
Just one thing, I guess. I think it was Sarah was talking about just that we got cut off. Was talking about the importance of appointing the right kind of lead farmer. Because if you get that wrong, that can create a difficult dynamic in the group to run. So I don't know how the process you guys go through to actually develop your groups in the first place, but I think that's really critical how you screen and get the right group of farmers together. Often we hear from farmers that they like their groups because they're with a group of like-minded farmers. And obviously that means different things for different people. It all depends on your mind, doesn't it, really? I guess when you interpret the word for what it says. But putting the effort to make sure there are farmers who've at least got some things that are common around the table, I think is critical how you sort of get a long-term success of a group.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's certainly been our, from the RMPP side of things, groups that are working well have lead farmers and facilitators working together really well. So that certainly does seem to help. Cool. Brendan, any last comments from you?
No, good. Thanks, Denise. Other just to say it's really good, rich conversation going on. It's awesome to see the sharing. And you know, the question was asked, what can we do about developing our soft skills and how do we go about that? I just encourage people to look to the future and what do you need as facilitators and what would help you? Is this the type of thing that would help you? And when we go into these future sort of meetings, to have those discussions around that, because it's this type of thing, it's this type of support, I think, that creates the opportunities for people to learn and learn from others, your peers.
Definitely. Cool. Lab, I am going to call on you. Any last comments from you? Still on mute.
Clicking on my, just trying to unmute myself and clicking on my photo instead of my screen. No, I just, it's great to hear that you know, those stories, I think, and I agree so much with Mark that it's the power of stories that really is, you know, you can do all the metrics you like, but stories are the most powerful measurement. So collect your own stories and record them and share them with each other, and particularly when we get together in the forum. But also outside, that's what communities of practice are all based on, is telling each other stories. So that's all I've got to say, really.
No, that's great. Thanks, Lab. And yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm conscious that time goes so quickly on an hour call and we've covered a lot of ground, but it's been really cool. I'm going to flick around a follow-up email with some of the questions and answers and Lab's suggestion on a book, and any other thoughts that you've got, please feel free to email. I'll leave the Jamboards open and we'll be using that to shape up some facilitator Zoom calls over the next couple of weeks. I had thought that the next one we would talk about where to for groups in the future. So drawing on some of you guys' experience with having conversation with your groups about, well, what do we do now that we've used up the RMPP funding or it's coming close to an end, that kind of thing. How do you have those conversations? What's been working, what hasn't, all of those kinds of things. So that's what we're going to dig into. I'm also conscious that this evaluation is just the start of the story. We're going to keep on adding some evaluation results and findings into these calls as well. So yeah, thanks everyone, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So thanks. Please feel free to stay if you do have any questions or anything like that as we go, but that's it. Cool. Thanks, team. See ya.
Yeah.